All right, Sean, Sunday quarterback, 0-2 for the first time since 1957. What's your big takeaway from the Troy game?
My biggest takeaway is this football team, this program needs to figure out how to win again. They've lost now 8 out of 9 games, 6 in a row. You've got a locker room of guys that forgot what a win feels like, forgot how to finish a game, forgot how to go out and play 4 clean quarters of football. And I look at this right now, and I'm sure Scott Frost knew this was going to be a tough task to come in and flip the culture. He thought, I think, things were heading in that direction, but there's still some just little things, and those little things have turned into big things on the field. And Nebraska's got to figure out a way to get that winning culture back in their locker room where they can finish a game and just walk in there as a winner. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. The Huskers' last win was October 28th at Purdue in 2017. You mentioned little things. How about penalties? 10 on Saturday, 21 in 2 games. What in the world's going on?
Well, I think when you get down 17-0 like we saw this week and 14-0 like we saw against Colorado, those mistakes just lead you to press, make you do more things on the field that lead to penalties, whether it's trying to hold because you want the big third down play to work, or holding a receiver on a third down, or pass interference call because you don't want them to convert a third down. And I just feel like the pressure of the way the games have gotten out of rhythm for Nebraska leads to more mistakes, and you see those mistakes turn into a lot of penalties.
One big mistake on Saturday was a special teams punt return touchdown given up. That was a huge play.
Yeah, that's one that's hard to wrap your hands around because Nebraska just doesn't, you shouldn't give up any punt returns ever. I think there's a stat out there when you give up a return for a touchdown, more often than not, you're going to lose games like that. It's just such a key moment, especially in a game like today when you don't have all your horses running, when you're playing with a number 2 quarterback. That key moment itself, I think, is what kind of paved the way for Troy to say, you know what, we're going to win this thing. And then they get up 17-0, and from that point on, they could almost play conservatively, and that's what they did. Troy went into this game once they got the lead. They took very few risks because they knew that Nebraska, on the other end, their offense was not really built to come back today, and we saw that at the end. They just weren't able to finish it.
Yeah, Troy liked to milk that clock. They were taking even penalties, delay the game penalties,
Unbelievable.
At a couple of times, different instances on Saturday. And I think one of the things that was peculiar when you're talking about Nebraska and their slow start, I mean, you couldn't have written it any worse because, you say avoid the turnovers. What happens? They give up 2 turnovers. They fall behind 17-0 with a first-time quarterback in Andrew Bunch. His numbers were decent, but man, it was a puzzling afternoon for the offense, especially up front.
Yeah, it's the mentality. Once you start turning the ball over, you think about it more and more, and you get down. But the offensive line, as you mentioned, Scott Frost said this after the game. This should have been a black shirt and a pipeline game. And I mean, he didn't say this, but it should have been a 1993 Matt Turman type of game. You start a walk-on in a game like that at Kansas State. The defensive line, the running backs, the offensive line won that game on the road where the walk-on quarterback didn't have to do a lot. And that's really, I think, what they wanted today to be. They wanted this game to be a line of scrimmage game where Nebraska could wear down Troy, limit the really high-risk situations for Andrew Bunch, and let their depth just wear Troy down. And never once did you ever get the feel that was happening.
Yeah, give Troy credit. They played really well today and really took advantage of their opportunities, making the most of their opportunities. That's why they walked away with a win. On the flip side, Nebraska, Scott Frost saying, if you don't want to be a part of this turnaround, go now. And I thought that was interesting right after the game when he said something like that. He doesn't want any quitters.
Yeah, it was kind of a draw a line in the sand moment for Scott Frost. And it was not easy for him to get up there and talk about this because he's very upset. I mean, nobody thought this team would be 0-2. I mean, most of us, because we thought Akron game was going to happen, had Nebraska 3-0. I mean, they were favored the first 3 games of the year at home to win, and they've lost 2 and had 1 canceled. So it's not an ideal situation, and you don't want this locker room to turn, and it's not. I mean, I think the leadership of the senior class particularly is pretty strong, and we haven't heard from Stanley Morgan. We haven't heard from him really in weeks, but we know behind the scenes he's one of the guys getting up. We know guys like Stoltenberg and Gifford and Fisher and all these leaders, Foster are guys getting up right now in that locker room, trying to grasp their hands on this, because obviously next week we know it's not going to get easy.
Yeah, 0-2 for the first time since 1957. The Huskers will try to avoid an 0-3 start. Next week they open up Big Ten play, the first road trip of the season at Michigan.